Well, welcome back to Simple Truth. Try to make some simple truths out of the story of David. And we're in 1 Samuel. We're in chapter 24. And we're going to start, we read verses 8 and 9 last week. But I want to start in verse 9 again, where it says, "And David said to Saul, 'Why do you listen to the words of the men who say, Behold, David seeks you harm?'" I want to start there and say, listen, too often people listen to the words of men. And we make decisions, right? We make a pathway based on the words of men. Men have evil intentions. Men have a sinful nature. Men don't always do things that match up with God's plan and purpose. God says that men, right, there is a way that seems right to man, but it leads to death. Right? There are things that just make sense to us. There are things that are just right. God would never do this. Right? You have a problem here, because I was praying about this morning, right? And knowing that I'm going to be talking about this coming up, right? We have a problem because God has a king who he anointed and he put in charge, and he has not removed yet. But God also anointed another king. A king in waiting for what God was going to do. Right? God is going to remove King Saul from the position. He told them that. I'm going to remove you. Right? You're done. I'm pulling the kingdom away from you. The problem is when God declared he was going to do that, and when God actually did it, there's a whole bunch of years in there. And in the midst of it, God does this thing that we would never think he would do. He actually anoints another person to be the next king before the current king is gone. So you see, that process, that principle works all over the place, right? That principle works in your workplace. God may point you and say to you, you're going to be the next manager of this place, but you still have a manager. What happens when you still have a manager? What happens when you still have somebody who's in charge? God may say to you, hey, you're going to be the next pastor of this church. But there's already a pastor there. What happens with that whole thing? What we do in that moment matters. The respect that we give people, it matters. The fact that we don't hurry up God's process. You know how hard it must have been for David not to hurry up this process. He's the anointed next king of Israel. He's had two opportunities to take that. And both times he says, yep, nope, it's not up to me. God will remove. God will do those things. But here's the problem. David could have also lost sight of the promise and gone, when is God going to do this? God's never going to do this. And he could have hurried things on his own. He could have gone and done whatever he wanted to do. But we need to be careful that we're not listening to the words of men. Sometimes people tell us what we want to hear. Sometimes people tell us what we don't want to hear, and we use that. We figure, I must deserve this. Right? Oh, yep, this must be true because this person told me. Right? David says, why are you listening to the words of men when they say that David wants to harm you? Right? So I want you to stop right there, and I want you to chew on that for a little bit, right? What words are you listening to? Right? Are you listening to the words that make sense to you? Or are you open and willing to be open to whatever God has for you? And that might be totally different. He might anoint you, have you anointed, right, for a specific time and purpose and place. It just hasn't come yet. Are you willing to hang on that? Right? Are you so confident in your knowledge, what you know, how you know it, the people that you've surrounded yourself with, that you are sure of something that isn't really matching up with what God has? Chew on that. We'll see you next time right here on Simple Truth.